Hello and welcome to the Footballer Life Show. Your ultimate source for everything football. On this podcast, we delve into the world of soccer and bring you the stories, interviews, and insights from the game we all love. From the highs of winning a championship to the lows of injury, from nutrition to even getting scouted. We will take you on a journey of discovery, and it will always be football. Join us as we explore the lives of leaders in the global football ecosystem and see the sport from a different perspective. So sit back, grab a drink, and let's kick off this episode of the Footballer Life Show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the number one podcast in the world. We got the Footballer Life Pod here with myself, Cal Madi, Coach Lucas, and we have the father, the godfather, the grandfather, the founder of the Footballer Life program and the Footballer Life Pod. This is an internal pod. We have the main man, David Clarke. David Clarke, how are you today?
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. First of all, I want to say thank you for being our host in this podcast, and then also the YouTube channel helping us out with that too. It's huge. We're super excited to have you guys.
Absolutely.
I love the Chicago hat too, by the way.
Thank you, sir. I figured it matches with the Footballer Life blue, baby. We're all branded up.
I know. I got mine too.
Love it.
I'm excited. I could tell you guys, I'm excited to be part of this project. And I'm really interested, David, to hear from you, like when this vision came about. Can you describe what your vision is for Footballer Life?
Yeah.
This has been about 4 or 5 years in the making, really. We want to create a platform globally, a community that's supportive to those in the game, not just players, not just parents or trainers or whoever it is that's in the game, supporters of a certain team. We want to create a supportive environment. And so we don't really feel there's anything out there right now that is a good community for support in terms of all the stakeholders in the football community itself. And so that's the main goal in this. And also it's a fragmented marketplace. And so you got to go to a lot of different places to find news or you're going to Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, you're going to all these different social media platforms. None of them are focused on football. And so it's like you're going around looking for news, you're going to some sort of app for your kid's team. It's all so fragmented. And so we want to bring everyone together. We're like a train station, we like to say. So we want to bring people on. You can still go to your Instagram, go to your different engagement platforms, but we want to have everyone in one place. I think that's probably a good summary of what we're trying to do.
Beautiful, beautiful. For those of you who stick along with this episode, you're going to be able to find out all about the vision for the Footballer Life, or in other words, the house for football, the home for football, right, as David is looking to create. Now, before we dive into Footballer Life, I want to dive into David Clarke. So I'd like to take us all the way back, David, from before you were a father, before you were an adult. Where did you start with football? Tell us about your life story ever since you were a kid.
So I was in that group of kids that parents would coach, but they had never seen soccer before. Like they were just out there trying to help the best they could. There was not really many coaches at that time in the 80s that actually had experience on the game, and so I started probably 5 years old playing, but I was also playing, of course, basketball and running track or whatever else I was doing. And I started young and really found passion in soccer itself. To be honest, I didn't really follow it much because there wasn't really much to follow in the US, but I played and enjoyed the game and ended up playing through college and stopping after that. But I played at James Madison University College for 4 years and had an amazing time playing with a lot of great players. So
beautiful, beautiful. Tell us a little bit more about your experience trying to make it to the collegiate level and what that was like for you, as well as your experience throughout your college career.
Yeah, so in those days, everything was run through the ODP program. Now it's not so much. Now you have all these different ECNL and all these different academy systems and everything. But back in those days, you had to go through the ODP system to get any kind of exposure, right, in the game. And so I played on a club team that was very strong with a lot of Division I players coming through that system, a lot of national team players in our club system. And we got some exposure that way, and I made it into the ODP program. And then once you got high enough in the ODP program, it was you got the exposure you needed to get in front of these Division I coaches. And so that's what propelled me to get an offer at James Madison, among a couple other places. But that was where I wanted to go. That was only 2 hours from home, and it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. So
Beautiful. Before we dig into your experience throughout your college career, I'm actually curious. I myself didn't have the luxury of playing in college due to an injury I suffered in high school. But Coach Lucas, you were recruited to play in college as well. So you hear Dave talk about kind of the recruitment process and what that looked like in the 80s and how it almost became a lot more complicated over time. Now, you weren't recruited or playing in college in the 80s. So how did that compare your path to trying to get recruited to play in college? How did that compare to David speaking about his path?
That's a good question. When he was saying that in my head, I'm like, dang, I should have played more ODP. Like I should have got into that. I should have broke into that. But, and David, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like when I started coming up, which was like the 2000s, that like showcases and ID camps and like all these other stuff started to really emerge and really cause the landscape of exposure to just explode in a way. It started becoming more there became more options for players for exposure. So for me, it was about showcases, tournaments, ID camps, those types of things.
I think it was a funnel that just went one place, which is ODP. People could still come and they would obviously recruit tournaments and things like that, but the ODP system was where they tried to funnel the best kids into. And so you'd go in and try to make the state team, and then you'd make the regional team. And then once you made the regional team, then you would try out together for the national team. And so by the time you got to that regional level, you didn't really have to go looking for colleges. They would just go look on those lists and say, okay, let's find this kid. He's in our area. Let's recruit this kid. And so it's a lot easier now. I think it's much more difficult, much more fragmented in terms of much more access to the coaches themselves. What I mean by that is you can just email coaches or whatever. Back then, we weren't really emailing coaches or anything. Our parents, we didn't reach out to them. And maybe I'm an old guy. So I'm 92 to 96. So I was getting recruited late 80s and early 90s really. But anyway, just a different system now. I don't know if it's better or worse, but it was one way to the top. And so it's like that. It seems the US is pretty fragmented in that sense now.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear about that. Just the system changing in itself. As Coach Lucas says, it exploded in terms of the different routes that you can take to get recruited. Right. And here, that word exploded almost makes it sound like it was a good thing. And you're right, David. I don't think any of us can say that the system changed for better or for worse. However, I can speak to my experience just talking with parents over the past 4 years. I've spoke with thousands of soccer parents, and now college recruitment is still probably at the top of the list of unknowns, where they don't know the right path. They don't know which direction they should be going. So it almost makes it seem like it was a lot simpler when it was just that one path versus 15 different routes you can take, none of them being identified as greater than the other. So I think it's a pro and a con, because on one end, there's more that a player can do if for whatever reason they weren't able to break into that ODP type setting. And on the other end, there's almost too much to where you don't know which is the best path. That's a really interesting take to hear how the system has changed over the years. But yeah, that's super cool. So what was it like for you in college, Dave? Tell us about your collegiate career. I know you said it was amazing, but give us a little bit more insight on that.
So college was great. I went to James Madison. We were top 10 Division I school during that period and had a very successful run. A lot of great players. We had a lot of people that came out of that team. Carlo is now the head of the Premier League in Finland. He's a chairman. And another guy I played with, Jake Edwards, is the president of the USL. We have guys out of that team that are college coaches and went on to play professionally and all that. So it was a great group of guys. And so that was the best part of just the guys, the camaraderie and all that. But we also were facing up against a UVA team that won 4 straight national championships, and probably the greatest college team that was ever put together. And so that was with Bruce Arena coaching, and they had Claudio Reyna, and they were just stacked from top to bottom. They were stacked. By far the best team in the country. And I would say these days, Claudio Reyna wouldn't touch a college soccer field if he was coming up now. Just like his son, Gio, he didn't go to college. And I think that you just can't match those teams, because all the best players that were going through the college system, and they happened to just snag them all. It was unbelievable, the team that they put together. They were our rival, but I don't know about rival if they looked at us as a rival, because they were pretty much just demolishing everyone, but they were 40 minutes away. So it was pretty amazing to have a team that's ranked. They were number one. We might have been fourth or fifth or something in the country. We were 40 minutes away. And so
Wow.
I think one game that we had in the NCAA quarterfinals, I think they had 7,000 people, and it was like the most pre-sale tickets at that time ever for a college soccer game. And it was crazy. The whole place was filled before the game started. And it was nuts.
That's incredible. The environment in those types of matches were probably insane.
Oh, you can't even imagine. Like when we got there on the bus, there was just all people in the tailgating. The whole place was tailgating. And so we went down under the stadium. Clarke Stadium was the Mecca. UVA's stadium was new. They had spent millions of dollars on it. And that time, no one was doing that. And they had locker rooms underneath the stands on the one side. And we came out to warm up. The whole place was full. It was crazy. It was the loudest thing you could ever imagine. For us as kids, like we were just like, dang, this is intense. It was fun. And we knew the other team too. The UVA had a lot of guys from my club team. So we knew everyone on the field.
Wow, that is so
great.
cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to probe deeper on that angle, which is like, what was some of the most rewarding experiences that you had during those times?
I would say the fun part was traveling. You know what I mean? It sounds stupid, but it's like just traveling, be on a bus with your buddies. There was no planes that we were flying around. There wasn't a budget for that. There was a little bit of that, but mostly we were just on a bus going up and down Virginia and Maryland and Pennsylvania or wherever. We'd go down to Wake Forest and traveling with the guys. We played I think it was one of the first games, not the first game of my career. We played Wake Forest and we were unranked at the time. And I think they were ranked in the top 5 or something. And so we went down there and we were warming up for the game on one of their practice fields. I think we just had our shirts on. It even said James Madison on them, right? And we're playing Wake Forest the next day. So we're warming up on the field just before the game the next day, and their assistant coach comes up and he's like, "What are you guys doing on this field?" We were like, "Coach, like, what do you mean we're playing tomorrow?" And he was like, "Who are you playing?" We're like, "We're playing Wake Forest, playing you guys." And he was just like, "Oh, okay, get off. You only have a few minutes. You got to get off the field." And we were just like, "Seriously?" It was funny. And so we beat them 4-0 the next day and just thrashed them. And they were just shocked. They had no idea who we were, that we were any good. And so it was a fun moment beating up on those guys because they were obviously the blue bloods and we were just the upstarts. So after that, people knew who we were. The next 4 years, we pretty much won most everything, at least in our conference. So
That's incredible. That's incredible. It sounds like for you, like growing up in ODP and in the club scene and even going into college, although soccer may have not have been top in terms of like American sports or
Right.
interest from Americans, it sounds like the culture at that time for you was really healthy and like fun and encouraging. Can you speak on like the culture growing up for you at that time?
Yeah, I think I was also a basketball player. And so pretty high level basketball player. I don't know about college level. And so I played in high school and club basketball and everything. And so I think a lot of people, when you played soccer back in those days, or football, as we call it around the world, they were a little bit kind of, why? They'd have to ask you, like, why are you going to play soccer? You know what I mean? Almost like it was a little bit strange. And they didn't understand what that game was. Most people didn't understand it. But yeah, it was a little bit of marks in terms of why. And I loved it. And I love basketball too, of course. But I think the biggest thing in those days was people weren't sure what the reward was at the end of the day. Like, why would you play the game? And so it wasn't very supportive, I wouldn't say, in that sense, where I had times where I went and tried out with the regional team, with the youth national team, and I'd have to miss a basketball game. And the coach would just like, why would you miss a basketball game? You know what I mean? I was like, this is a pretty big deal. I thought they had no idea, didn't care. They were just like, didn't care at all. They were just like, you're missing a basketball game. My mom would have to say, but this is his path for college and this is where we're trying to go. But I think that was the thing. It just is nowadays, it's just, you don't have to explain to everyone. The game is growing so quickly. So
100%.
That's beautiful. What position did you play?
I played, when I was younger, I was playing attacking midfield in the middle, mostly. In college, I played mostly on the wing, left. I was a lefty. I was a left only player, you know what I mean? I was like, my right foot was for standing on. It wasn't too great. But anyway, I was on the left side. But yeah, it was great. It was a great memories, I'll tell you. College soccer, even now today, of course, it's a great opportunity. And it's just, you can't really put words to how much fun it is. Even if the soccer is not as rewarding, say you don't have a great career or you don't play as much as you want, it doesn't matter. You're still having so much fun.
My left foot was
100%.
just for standing on.
My right foot.
Said,
I was lefty. I was a lefty. I'm sorry. My
he
right
said,
foot.
he
Yeah,
said my
I was
right
left
foot was
footer.
just for standing on. That's
Yeah, like-
hilarious.
Yeah, I made fun of someone in the World Cup the other day because they only had one foot. And one of my buddies texted me back and said, "Man, you only have one foot." I was like, "Yeah, but I'm not starting in the World Cup." It's like a whole different level there. It's like,
That's so
yeah,
funny.
I was a lefty for sure.
That's so funny.
So.
Cool. David, I'd like to somewhat move into the next chapter of your life, which is obviously post your collegiate career. So what did things look like for you in terms of life after college, all the way into what you pursued directly after college, how you started your family even? Tell us a little bit about that.
I went directly into the business world. Like I wasn't really interested in playing too much after because I just knew there wasn't much money in it, even though it would be a lot of fun. But just at that point, I think I had a good friend. His name was Brandon Pollard. I think he was a second pick in the MLS draft back in maybe 95 or whatever it was, or 94. And he was hardly making anything. And that's just the way it was in the MLS in those days. It's like you weren't making much money. And so I saw that and I was like, I'm never going to get to that level. So I was like, I'm not even going to make that, even if I could do it. So I moved out of soccer, went into the business world. We moved from Virginia to Phoenix, Arizona. I ended up working there and got my MBA at Arizona State University. So we're Sun Devils. We were in Tempe for 21 years. And then I was out of the soccer world for a long time, even though following it and had kids and all that. But now in the last 4 or 5 years, getting back into it with this project.
And where did your family begin? When did you start your family and how did that come to be?
Tempe, Arizona. So my wife is a JMU graduate too. So we moved, she went to graduate school at the ASU as well, right out of James Madison University. And then after we moved there, I think it was a couple of years later, we ended up getting engaged, getting married back in Virginia. And then we lived in Arizona for 21 years. And then we've been in Colorado for almost 6, Denver, Colorado. So we have a 2004 boy who is 18 and our daughter was an 06. These are playing ages, obviously. She was an 06, so she's 16. And so she's retiring from the game right now. Like at that age, a lot of kids never fall out of love with it, but it's not a path they're going to choose. And the time you need doesn't really make a lot of sense. She gave up the game, but yeah, so we got 2 kids and we're a big soccer family for sure. We watch
Beautiful.
A lot of games on the weekend. A lot of games. So.
Beautiful. So now you're in your post-college life. You've started your family. You have a son. You have a daughter. Sorry. Where did the idea of footballer life come to be? When did you even consider that as a concept, and how?
I think it came from my son. My daughter was into soccer, but not like my son. He was a little bit crazy into it. Like he was just hyper focused on it. And there wasn't really any outlet for it. It's like there wasn't really much of a community out there. There wasn't an outlet for kids that were really hungry to get better. Things have gotten better recently, but back in 12, 13 years ago, you had your club system, the club that you were involved in. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of engagement outside of that. And so we originally were thinking about some sort of training and decided after discussion for a while on that we didn't really want to be a training app. We wanted to be an app that was, or a community that was more for everyone. You know what I mean? Like an app could come on there and build their business, or a club could come on there, or any kind of brand or a trainer or a player. We want to bring everyone together. And that's what it morphed into. And a lot of it came around talking to people and seeing that there's like an economic and a geographic wall that's up in the football world, right? And obviously US is inside of that wall, which is great, but there's a lot of kids out there that are outside that wall, that economic wall. And we don't want there to be an economic wall for these kids. We want to make sure they get the same access. We want to bring down that barrier so that if we do, there's certain things that you have to, with an app, you might have to charge money or whatever. We don't want to charge these kids money because we want to give them the same access that a kid in Chicago would have, or a kid in London, or a kid in wherever, Mexico City. And there's some places that obviously some kids have access and some don't. It's like we want to make sure that we're not boxing out any kids and making them feel like, man, I'd love to get on Football Life, but I don't have $5 a month or whatever. And so we want to steer clear of that. And so I think the best way for us to do that was to create a community so we can support these kids.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant because I think, David, you've got such a big network. You know a lot of people from all over the world, high level people, whether it's coaches, directors, some of the folks that you mentioned earlier on the call. And I think it makes a lot of sense because you have a lot of resources that you can provide to these players that are behind that wall that they otherwise wouldn't be able to access. And I think that's just brilliant.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is to give them hope that there's a process, because right now there's no process. So with our player discovery feature that we're going to have inside the community, a player can just say, hey, raise their hand and say, I want to have my profile in your database, like in your player discover area, so that agents and scouts can find me. And so what we'll do is we'll actually vet that profile, make sure it's all has everything they need in there, help them if they need to, with whatever information they need to have in there. And then we'll review that profile. And once that profile is accepted, and we think it's good enough for the agents and scouts to see them, we will put them into that database. So we'll approve that profile. So we also don't want people coming in and looking for players that when a player's not active, right? So that you have to raise your hand and ask, obviously, to get in that profile database. And so we want to make it so that they can get exposure, show their quality in measurable ways, and then some qualitative ways too, so that they can be seen. And then when they're seen, they'll know it. If the agent looks at their profile, they'll get a little message that says, hey, agent in London looked at your profile. And that really gets these kids excited because they know it's a process, right? There's actually a process created versus just throwing something up on Instagram and hoping and praying someone sees it. It's like, that's what they do.
Right.
Now.
Exactly. Exactly. Have you ever thought about doing, I don't know, like a Footballer Life showcase or a Footballer Life camp or something like that? Not that's the immediate goal, but like eventually tournaments, things of that nature. I can just picture once you get some traction, get some players from everywhere that are really living and feeling the footballer life. Like I suspect you'll have some options at your fingertips of what you want to do and where you want to take this thing.
Yeah, our goal is to get big enough so that we can help. I always tell people that it's like, as we grow, we'll have more resources, right? We'll bring on partners that will donate things for our user base, right? And so we want to give back as much as possible. And so if giving back means creating a tournament in Nigeria that our players can play in, and we'll bring scouts in there so that they can be seen. And if they're good enough, they'll get picked or get some chance to be seen maybe in another country, what they're looking for, then we're all for it. It's really about what drives the highest benefit for our user and what helps them reach their goals. It's about support. It's about positivity. You guys know in the game, you guys are experts in the mental side of the game and just the game in general. And it's like, you understand that there's a lot of negativity in the game. And as you pass through the process and the skates you're trying to achieve, like whether it's trying to be a high school player or you're trying to be a college player, or you're trying to make a certain club team, or you're trying to be a pro, there's a lot of gates you got to get past. And a lot of those are very negative processes. And so we feel like support, there's a big missing piece, which is support for these kids. So the platform, that's our goal, is to support these kids. And we tell people, if you don't need support, then come on the platform and support them. If you can come on there and you see a kid that looks good and you have a contact, message the kid and say, hey, you look really good. We'd love to have you come over and come to an ID camp for this college or whatever. It's like, let's help be supportive and positive in a world right now, the football world, it's tough. Really difficult.
I love that. I think Cal and I experienced that recently coming off an event that we did. What came very apparent that you're talking about is like the positivity in the culture and the sense of belongingness in the players and the feeling of from these players that they can be themselves. So what I'm trying to say is like your emphasis on positivity and culture, I'm totally behind that. I think that's a massive deal that may get overlooked when people are looking at this whole thing of helping these young players.
Yeah, and it's also trainers too. Anyone that's trying to reach their goals, maybe it's a small business, maybe it's a kid that was trying to start a club to help kids that are disadvantaged or whatever it happens to be, whoever comes on the platform, we're here to support them. And I think it's a positive experience. And the only reason why I want to be involved is so that we can create something positive and make it more efficient to be involved in the community as a whole too. You know what I mean? right now it's so fragmented, everything, that it just feels like it's really difficult. You got to go to 4 or 5 different apps and to find out news, and you got to go to TeamSnap and all these different areas. And it's like, we want to make it so that it's one login, it's more efficient, and it's also, like I said, just a more positive experience. So
Beautiful.
That's brilliant. Yeah, on top of what Coach Lucas said, I just think that it's truly a real problem that you're trying to solve. And the fact that you're looking to create equal opportunity for everyone across the globe, it's so powerful. And this might seem like a little funny joke, but in all seriousness, I remember like when I first stepped into this industry with Coach Lucas, over time, like I started to get these random Facebook messages from like a player in South Africa or Nigeria, and they would literally say, "Can you please bring me to America?" And at the beginning, I was like, "What the heck?" And I look at their profiles, and they're real kids. Like they're legitimate kids living a normal life, except a normal life in Nigeria. So the fact that you're looking to create these opportunities, or more so equal opportunity across the globe, it's so big. And it's one of the things that Coach Lucas mentioned, is that like you realize that this is bigger than you, right? This is bigger than all 3 of us. And that's where your network comes into play. These powerful leading experts within the industry that you have at your fingertips. Dave, can you speak to that a bit? Your team, the people that you've brought together, and then even your network outside of that internal team?
Yeah, we have a great team. Real quickly, just to finish up on that last point, with these kids in these countries in Africa, I've talked to a lot of these kids. And so the one reason we don't want to charge any money is because they get scammed. They get told, "Hey, we want you to go to this ID thing that's in this other city. It's only $200 or whatever." And they scrape up their money and they put in $200, and then it's gone. And I had never heard of that before. And they were like, "You're not asking for any money." And I was like, "No, we don't want any of your money." It's like, we're here to support you. And so that was a powerful thing that we learned, is that there's a lot of scams going on and we didn't even realize that. So that's another reason why we want to make sure that our platform never asks for any money from any of these kids or any trainers or anyone. But on your next point, though, we have some really amazing people that are involved in this project. And with Mo Ali's on board, he's obviously one of the best influencers in the world. He's got millions of followers, and I think it's 1 million something on Instagram. He's got 7 or 8 million on TikTok. He's got YouTube followers. He's working. It's amazing what that guy has done in the business. And we have Joe Elsmore on board too, who was a 30-year Nike veteran, pretty much signed every US player that you can name, starting with Mia Hamm even. And we actually watched her play in college at North Carolina, and so she was from Virginia, from our local area, but what a player. But he signed a lot of players. He signed Carly Lloyd. He's a guy who knows in the game. And so we need this leverage, so that we can grow this platform, but also so that we can follow through on our promises to support people. If we say we're going to support you, but we have no contacts, then it's tough. And so we need to make sure that we have that network in place so that once we really grow to scale, that we can actually follow through on the promises of supporting these kids. Yeah, the team is amazing. Feel lucky to have the people that we do, and they're all footballers. Like we always say, football life is built by footballers for footballers. We're here. We're not coming into this because we're some business guys that see an opportunity. We're here because we love the game. You know what I mean? We're here for passion. We're not here because we got an MBA and we're right out of school and we're going to make a bunch of money. We're here to grow something that's going to be great. And we can obviously benefit from it too by using it.
I love that. This is totally sidebar, but when I was a kid, this campaign that came out called Yoga Bonito. Or Joga Bonito. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And it was this like computer thing where like they would send you episodes of a new Joga Bonito episode every week. And I remember when that first came out, as a young player that was like 11 years old or whatever I was, like that was so important for me. Like it was so special. And like I looked forward to the next episode like every week, and like it inspired me to train more, just go juggle in the backyard and that type of thing. And when I hear you talk about footballer life, David, I can feel a sense of that. It's a place where footballers from anywhere can come and get and be involved in the thing that they actually love doing. And anyway, totally sidebar, but yeah.
Yeah. Inspiration. got to inspire someone, and you got to engage them and reward them. That's our goal. Is we want to inspire these kids to get involved. A lot of them just fall out of the game or fall because they just don't have any access, or you have kids that in Brazil that like they're great players and they go down to Rio de Janeiro or wherever, and they have to have an apartment paid for. And then they don't have the access to that and they can't stay and they have to go home and they quit. We want to inspire these kids and for them to continue to push forward and enjoy the game. And then it's a whole process, right? It's football life. We're for the lifetime of the football enthusiasts, right? So we'll be there for you when you just start. And then you go on, you go to college and maybe you decide, hey, I want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a soccer player in college. But that doesn't mean you don't still support Manchester United. And that doesn't mean you don't still support your local club that you played at as a kid. And then now that doctor might have kids in the future that play. Now we have the cycle starting over again. So it's like we want to follow people through the whole cycle of their love for the game. It's not just about playing, it's about going through life. Now, I don't play anymore, but I watch more games than I ever did when I played, obviously. So we're always watching games on TV. My wife when she met me in college, I think she knew a little bit about soccer, but I don't even know how excited she was to watch my college soccer game, to be honest with you. And so now she has kids, right? She's watched them play. And now we've gone to Europe and actually gone to see the games live. And she's a huge fan. She knows she's working hard all day long, and she'll text us when Man City's starting lineup comes out. I'm like, she's got 3 people she's seeing in that office probably right now. And she still texts us the lineup to me and my son.
That's so funny.
It's a lot of passion there for the game, at least in our family. So
that's beautiful. Do you guys know what Yoga Bonito stands for?
It's beautiful game or something like that.
The beautiful game. Yeah, the beautiful game. What I've always thought it was so crazy that soccer, they've been able to coin that term, the beautiful game. That terminology is dedicated to just one sport, and it's known around the globe as well. David, the viewers don't know this. Obviously, Coach Lucas and I know this. I think it's one of the coolest aspects of Footballer Life, but you guys see the Footballer Life logo there behind David, and that logo actually means something near and dear to David's heart. And that boy in the blue right there is David's son. So David, can you tell us a little bit about that story, how that came to be and what the logo actually means?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. It's a great story and it sums up the brand of Footballer Life. And so we were looking for something that represented passion, right? Because that's what Footballer Life is about, one passion that everyone shares. And so we were just like thinking, man, what's a good representation of passion? And so we were like, it's the celebration, right? It's when people celebrate a goal, that is the part of the game, is when people celebrate. They celebrate however they want to do it. You know what I mean? That they're expressing themselves. And so anyway, we found a picture of my son that we thought was perfect. And so the story behind this picture is great because he was just, I think, first game in a club system, right? So he was like in the little grassroots games or whatever for a year or two. And then he got into this club called Sereno in Arizona. And I don't even know if he's on the first team, might have even been on the second team, but anyway, we were at the game and my wife always taking pictures and she's got the camera on her lap and we weren't expecting to score. And he just put in some junk goal. I don't even think he just shot it and bounced around and went in. And he just started flying around like because he scored. And I looked at my wife and I was, did you get that shot? And she never even took a camera. She just was like, oh my God, I was so excited. I was like screaming. And I was just like, I was so mad. I was like, you missed that. That was amazing what he just did. I couldn't believe it. Just the kid out of the blue just scored and went crazy like that. And you don't know what you're going to do when you score, right? Like, because you know what I mean? Like when sometimes it's such a big moment, you do something stupid, you take off your shirt or whatever. So anyway, we had another game the next day and I was like, I told my wife, I said, look, we might have to get divorced if we don't get the next one. She was like, all right, so I'll keep the camera close. And so anyway, he had a free kick the next game and he scored. And he did the same thing again. He just started running around with airplane and she snapped that picture. And so that's the silhouette of him celebrating his second goal ever as a club player. So it's a great moment. I think it really sums up the brand. So.
I'm so mad that Cal brought up the logo thing first, because like this whole time I've been like waiting for my moment to bring up the logo thing, because like I love that logo. I love that logo. And I told you this before a week ago or so, David. I really love that logo because when you see it, you can immediately, if you're a footballer, you immediately resonate with what that means.
Right.
And I'm astonished that wasn't done by some freelancer design artist. I'm astonished that's an actual photo of your son. So
It's on our website, Lucas. You got to go see it. It's on our website. On the about page, the actual picture. It's pretty cool. It's like, that's a good segue into the lifestyle brand. It's like, we're developing a lifestyle brand for footballers, and we don't feel like there's anything out there. Obviously you can wear Nike or whatever, but they have all different sports, and it's like, we want to create something that's authentic, that ties into our community, right? So it's an extension of the community, just like our YouTube channel is an extension of the community, right? I want Cal walking around with a football like hoodie and someone to go be like, dude, you're on that app. That's so cool. I'll connect with you. You know what I mean? What's your username? We want to create like a community where it's super tight. When people are like, when they see that hoodie or those pants or the hat or whatever that we have that we're going to launch in the future, it's an instant connection with that person because you know that they share the passion of football. Right? Whether they're in Spain or in Chicago or in London.
Yeah, and I gotta admit, even you just telling that story and describing the fact that it's supposed to illustrate passion, like I get goosebumps just hearing about it because I remember those moments when I was a kid too. And a lot of the times I was the one who did something stupid, to be honest. But further than that, I just think it's a beautiful story. I'm actually gonna go ahead and show the original photo before we close out this podcast episode, David. Really quick before I do, why don't you tell them about your son today? And one of the things that's happened recently as well, I think they'd love to hear how that goes full circle.
Yeah, so he just signed a 2-year contract with the Northern Colorado Hailstorm in the USL, which is great, exciting for him. And so he's taking that next step. Youngster, so he's skipping college, which of course is a big decision these days. And we thought about it, and he's a pretty talented kid, and talked to some people, and they said, hey, he's probably worth giving it a shot. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. Just give away everything you got and see where it leads. But he's now a pro, signing shirts and all these funny things, signing autographs. It's a funny thing how that works out, but all that work I think paid off, and that's what we want to help the next generation, is help them meet those goals, whatever they are.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I can't imagine how proud of you your son may be. The fact that you're building an entire community that is actually going to be supportive of him and himself. For everyone watching, this is the original photo here of David's son, which you can see is a perfect representation of the logo. The happiness on this kid's face is the happiness that we really the happiness that we want to emulate with the Footballer Life platform and the Footballer Life pod. David, honestly, it couldn't have been more of a pleasure to just get to know you today and your entire story, more so the story of Footballer Life. And it's going to be an even greater pleasure to watch the rest of this story unfold. So thanks again for your time today. I couldn't be more happy to be a part of this and alongside you. And I'm excited for the next episode when we celebrate 1 million users on the Footballer Life platform. You cut out there, David.
I said we really appreciate what you guys are doing as hosts. Like, it's critical, and for us as a team, it's amazing to have you guys working with us on this project and this YouTube channel and podcast and all that. Like I said, we really love what you guys are doing, and we're excited to bring on some great guests and tell some great stories and educate people on the channel in the future.
Beautiful. For everyone watching, comment below who you'd like to see as a guest, a leading expert in the industry, and I'm sure we can nab them utilizing David Clarke here's network. But outside of that, questions, comments, concerns, just drop them below, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.